Welcome back to the Autry Benton Show. Today we have our Lieutenant Governor of the great state of South Carolina and the candidate to be the next governor of South Carolina. Madam LG, it is an honor to have you on the couch today.
It's great to see you again.
Oh, you're such a friend of Horry County. You blew the boats out in Horry County.
My people. You know, it was amazing as the numbers were rolling in and we saw the big numbers coming out of Horry. I was like blown away. And, you know, I can't tell you how much it meant to me.
Mm-hmm. About 50%, right?
Over 50%, because all the news stations across the state were saying if everybody came out like Horry County, this race would be over. So It was over 50%.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, a lot of people have asked me, and I just said, have you seen how much time on the ground she spent here? I said, you know, she's touched a lot of hands in Horry County, and you're truly a friend of Horry County. And you have a home here?
Yes, I do. I do. So I love the beach. So I love it here. You know, the beauty of South Carolina is every part of the state holds something so different. Mm-hmm. And so it's easy to love every part in its own way. But, you know, it is just, y'all have embraced me too. It's easy to come down here, you know, always invited, so much opportunity. And so over the last 8 years, y'all have been really good to me.
Yeah, well, that's very kind. You know, I want to brag on you too. Just the fact, I want to thank you for your service. I think anybody who has served in elected office, and even now to put your name on the ballot to be governor, I mean, what your family gives up, the amount of time that you've given up, anybody should be honored for that. Thank you for doing it and being willing to serve our state.
Well, you know, it is. It's all this job is really hard on your family. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there are things I've had to miss. But I think my kids, you know, I get more proud of them every day. Mm-hmm. And when Jackson was little, I remember a reporter came up to him. We were at a Clemson football game and we were on the field. And they said, you know, how is it, you know, I'm sure your mom's gone more than she used to be. And and he looked at him and he said, you know, it is. He goes, and that's the hard part. But the good part is I wouldn't know Dabo Sweeney if my mom wasn't the lieutenant governor, and I wouldn't be down here watching them before the game. And for me as a mom, that showed me that my children realize, like, in life, everything is good and bad. Everything has a trade-off, and I think that's good balanced parenting. And so, but my kids have been rock solid. They have been with me every step of the way. And in this campaigning, you know, it's harder on my family than it is on me. And shame on my opponents. They've attacked my 97-year-old mother.
Oh my goodness.
They've attacked my youngest son. They've gone after my husband. You know, we put our name out there in the arena, but our families should be off limits. Absolutely. And I'm proud that I've never brought my opponents' families into it, any part of their family. That is where it crosses the line. I think that really shows true character. You know, it's a lot, but my kids have been rock solid, strong through it, and I'm really proud of them. Yeah,
that's great. You know, and I encourage our listeners to go back and watch our first episode. It's more of extended on your life, but you want to kind of give us a brief history of your life, and then before we get into a few issues.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. So I'm an accountant by trade. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I started a company, a payroll HR company, in an office in my home, and grew it into a national company over 20 years. We were operating in 49 states. Wow. And what really drew me into saying yes to the governor when he asked me to be his lieutenant governor was I was just tired of how big government was getting and how intrusive it was getting into businesses and small businesses. And I kept seeing my clients, their number one complaint was, you know, how do I continue to grow with all of these regulations and all of these restrictions every time I turn around? And so I thought it would be, you know, finally a platform. Because my dad used to tell us, don't complain about something you're not willing to fix. You know, come to me with solutions, not problems. And so I started to hear that echo in my head, and when the governor called and asked me to run with him, I said yes. So I left my business and I came to serve the people of South Carolina. And it's been amazing. This is my 8th year as lieutenant governor, traveling around the state, getting to meet amazing people like you and your family and so many other families all across South Carolina. You know, you all become friends to me now.
Oh, yeah.
And helping businesses. I mean, you know, I think the beauty of a true public servant is to really put yourself out where problems are and then solve them. And I told businesses and people and associations, you know, I'm probably not the person that can fix your problem, but I can get you to the person who can fix your problem. And that has kept me going for 8 years. It's why I threw my hat in the ring to be governor, because I still have so many things that I think we need to do to make South Carolina even better than it is today.
Yeah.
And obviously, it is a great place. I had so many candidates in this race putting down South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
Acting like it was this terrible place that we needed to change. But go anywhere and people will say, I love this place. Where else would you want to go? And I think that was just, it's that horrible career politician message of everything's bad, and so I'm going to be the one to change it. And I think most people see past that and go, wow, everything's pretty good. I don't know what they're seeing. So that got me here. My time as lieutenant governor was ending because the governor and I run as a ticket. And the governor encouraged me. President Trump endorsed me. He encouraged me. And so many of you from across the state saying, you can't stop here. We really want you to be a governor. You want a business governor. And so July of last year, I threw my hat in the ring, and I have been running hard ever since. Ended up on primary night, as you know, on the top of the list, got the most amount of votes statewide. But now I'm in a runoff.
Yep.
But now it's really a clear contrast. You can look at putting into office a Trump-endorsed businesswoman or a career politician. That is what is now boiled down to. And now the people of South Carolina need to cast their vote and ask themselves what they want.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And you hit on something that I had the same thought drive here. America is a beautiful place, and South Carolina is a wonderful place. And I think our best days are ahead, Madam LG, in South Carolina. I mean, yes, we've got some things we need to work on, but this is a land of opportunity, and South Carolina is bright. Our best days are ahead, I believe.
You're right. And I think people are tired of that tired old message of everything's bad and everything's wrong. You know, when you're leading a business, when you're the head of your family, when you're running a state or a country, you better love that country.
Absolutely.
And you don't need to be the person putting it down. You need to be the glass half full person. And you hit it right on the head. Everything, growth brings change. Change brings problems. That's just life. And you always have to be thinking 10 steps ahead of everybody else to solve those problems. But that's what business people do, right? Like, we're always thinking about what's the next thing that can happen, what's the next problem we have to be prepared to solve. And so that's where I think, you know, I've been telling voters this now since July. That's where a business person comes into play, really taking us forward in a meaningful way.
Yeah, you know, I want to brag on you too. I really do like that you're a business person in this office. You got a lot of experiences, and I think it is time we look at government like a business. You know, there's a lot of, if we ran government like our businesses, it would look a lot different.
I tease all the time. I said, if you ever sat down with a group of business people, never once would you hear one of them say, God, I wish my business ran more like government. But they'll always say, I wish government ran more like our businesses. And that's what I'm here to do. You know, you can't run government exactly like a business, but you could take the best of business principles and finally bring them to government, to run efficiently, to lean in on technology, to cut down waste and spending. Because, I mean, when you just look at like the bloated spending of government, would you ever do that in your own business?
No, you can't.
You can't, because you can't go back to your clients and say, oh, I overspent, so I need to tax you a little bit more. I need to up your bill a little bit more. That doesn't work. And that's the way we have to think of our budget here in government. You know, if we're gonna eliminate state income tax, which we're gonna do, when I'm governor, the first thing we have to do is get spending under control. And that's what we all do in our own homes and in our businesses. And I already have the relationships with the General Assembly. I believe that there's a lot of mutual respect that goes back and forth, and I can sit down with them to get this accomplished.
Yeah. You know, you just hit something that's so important. I think the governor has to have that relationship, because if we're going to get things done, we got to work hand in hand.
I know. My opponent, and one of the opponents that lost on primary night, had a press conference apparently this week and talked about how they're going to team up together, create a fund, and go after people in the General Assembly that they don't feel are conservative enough. And that, to me, it kind of made me pause, because as an executive, as the governor, you're not electing me to be governor to go after the people you choose to put in the General Assembly. You're electing me as governor to work with whoever
That's right.
you bring to the General Assembly.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do. And so I think, to me, I just kind of thought, if that's your message, if you're standing up there saying, I'm going to come at you, I'm going to get rid of you if you don't agree with me, if you don't think what I think, you're just bullying people.
Yeah.
And I don't think people take well to that anymore.
Yeah.
How are you going to get things done when you already start out, like you haven't even given the job, and you're already talking about how you're going to beat everybody up?
Yeah.
I just don't think that's a good way to go about business.
And just knowing you, I know that's not your personality, that's not your way of doing business. I want to step back just a minute to family, and I know how important family is to you, and I think our listeners should know this too. Talk to us about your mom and how you care for her. I think that's special.
I love my mom. My mom is 97, and my grandma lived with us. Me growing up, I never knew my grandfather. He died before my parents were married. So my grandmother lived with us, and so when my dad passed away, I never thought that my mom wouldn't come live with me someday. I have 3 older brothers. I think moms out there will tell you it's probably easy to go live with your daughter.
Yeah.
But she has lived with us now full time for 17, 18 years now.
That's so special.
And she's amazing. I mean, she can run circles around David and I most days. But I think that is a lesson that everybody, I talk with Connie Munn with, she takes care of Office of the Aging. She's the director. And we're going to work really hard to make sure we change and work hard for change so that, our seniors can stay in their homes, that families can take their parents in if need be and still get help. It's a shame that the way our system is designed, you can get more help from insurance and from Medicaid if you put your parents in a home, in a retirement home or in a nursing home, then bring him in your house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not good business sense. And so we've talked about how can we push for things to make it better.
Yeah.
Because I think my mom has done so well because she's with us and she's with our kids and she's in the middle of everything and she's always has somebody around her. And I think just that positive family bond makes everybody thrive. I know it's made us better. It's made my kids better. They understand the challenges that seniors face, right? Technology is moving so quickly, more quickly than our seniors usually can grasp onto it. So, I mean, she called me last night after the debate and she was like, I watched you, you did great.
That's great.
And I'm 58 years old and I still look forward to hearing my mother say, you did a great job.
Well, I think it's a very honorable thing that y'all are doing, and you should be commended for that. You mentioned you've been endorsed by our president, who is wildly popular in South Carolina.
Absolutely.
Give us a little inside peek to him and your relationship and what that's like that maybe that we don't know.
Well, I got to meet him before the governor announced me as his lieutenant governor. And he knew first that I was going to be the governor's pick. And he was so kind to my family. And so we've got to know him over these last 9 years. He's just such a real guy.
Right.
Like easy to talk to, funny. Him and my youngest son Jackson would banter, when they would be together. But he is just so unapologetic about loving America and being the president of this country, and that's where his focus is, right? Like, I'm the president of this country.
Yep.
That's who I will fight for. That's what I will worry about. Those are the interests I'll protect.
Yeah.
And he believes it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at how people have come after him. I wear it, I should really wear it as a badge of honor when people come after my family. Because look what they've done to his family. Come after his children and his businesses, tried to take his life. I mean, and he doesn't stop.
Yep. And his work ethic is unprecedented.
I think, it's funny, Scott Bessent, who is a South Carolina native, right,
Yep.
is with the president. And I heard one of Scott's best friends is a mutual friend of mine. He said sometimes when they're flying back from somewhere,
Yep.
everybody tries to hide in the back of the plane so they can sleep for an hour or two. Because if the president makes eye contact, you're working,
You're going
right?
to work.
And because he's never ending. Like that kind of stamina is on. Maybe there's something to do with the Diet Coke and Big Macs that he seems to love. I don't know. Maybe we're looking at this all wrong.
For sure. That's special. That's special. We're going back to Autry County. And I think I commend the General Assembly for putting the cabinet level of the DOT under the governors.
Absolutely.
I just would think that if you're in the governor's mansion, you're a friend of Autry County.
Yeah.
I think that's our biggest need here is we've got to have some infrastructure to get our residents, but get our tourists here.
I know. Autry, that's the number one thing across the state.
Yeah.
People want us to eliminate state income tax, but for 8 years, all I've heard about is the roads. And I think that's where being a business person and bringing in public-private partnerships becomes key. How do we get the best and brightest in the paving infrastructure world to help solve our problems? And really getting rid of regulations. My gosh, over 80,000 on the books. A lot of them deal. I mean, I get calls all the time saying, oh my gosh, I'm trying to put in this whatever, whether it's a strip center or development, and I'm the last one, and now I got to pay for the whole intersection. And it's just these weird things that nobody really counts on. You don't, if you're not a business person, this is just the way it's written. We need to go back through and we need to revamp a lot of that so that we can get things done quicker and we can get things done cheaper. Because when things are done cheaper, I mean, that's what career politicians don't understand. Every time you make something more expensive for the private sector, that's why everybody's costs go up.
It's added on.
It gets added on. I mean, somebody's going to pay it. And it always goes back to the consumer. So if you really want to give relief to the consumers, then make it easier for people to do business.
And with your plan, you correct me if I'm wrong, you want to put a sunset on regulations and let's look at them again. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely. Like I said, we have over 80,000 regulations on the book. It's insane. And trying to go through them one by one, it'd be like finding a needle in a haystack. So I said, let's sunset all of our regulations, bring them back up in front of the General Assembly. If they're old and outdated, let's get rid of it. If there's duplication, let's get rid of it. If it's good, let's keep it. If it's something we really need, because we do need regulations. I mean, you just can't have it be the Wild West. But I want to make sure regulations are not written so broad that bureaucrats can put their own spin on them, right? And that's something we've all faced. If you've ever called, let's say the IRS, what's the first thing you do? You mark the date, you mark the time, you find out who's talking to, and you write their name down, because you could call back tomorrow and get a different person, have a whole different answer. And it's because these things are written way too broad, and everybody's doing their own little spin on interpretation. I think we need to tighten that up, because predictability is what makes business run successfully. And if we're going to start treating government like a business, we got to give our customers some predictability.
You talk in detail, and I think that's important. I think it's easy for people running for office to talk broad, but I like the detail. I think people are looking for that.
Well, that's why, I was never a big fan of debates, and I took a lot of criticism for them. I said I would do one. It was kind of like a rite of passage. If I made the runoff, I would do the runoff debate. But you're right. You really have to be a career politician to love debating, because they don't have depth. These are like hashtag answers. They're scripted things by their campaigns. I do better like this, telling you what I really think, explaining to you what I think. I really believe the reason I was so successful last Tuesday was because I was sitting with people, talking with people, hearing their concerns, and giving them response. And you're right. I think people really gel to that so much better than, I'm going to ask you this very in-depth question about how you're going to eliminate state income tax. You got 1 minute.
Yes, tough. And you bring that back up, but I appreciate your approach. It'd be easy to say, I'm going to do it, but how? And you've already said the first step, we got to bring spending into check.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that so much.
Oh, well, common sense. It's not so common anymore, but it's one of the things I kind of have lived by, and it's worked really well for me.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Another issue that I've heard you talk about in just being in rooms, I've heard it really resonate, is talking about the liberal ideas that our universities in a ruby red South Carolina are pushing down our students, and we fund them.
I know. Well, I talked about it a little bit. It came up as a question in debate last night, is SC State. And my opponent tried to say, oh, I can't believe she was arguing with students. I wasn't arguing with students. I was standing up for conservative values. And when South Carolina State rescinded my invitation because they said I was pro-life and pro-Trump and anti-DEI and pro-law enforcement, I wear that as a badge of honor. Yeah, that's exactly who I am. But what really bothered me is that nobody, not faculty, not the administration, no leadership on that campus sat those young adults down and said, hey, wait a minute. Do you realize President Trump has done more for historically black colleges and universities than any president? Hey, by the way, do you realize that, that lieutenant governor and that General Assembly that are made up of Republicans who value all the things you're criticizing fund this college? And that's the problem. They won't say that because they don't want those young adults to know that. And that's why I made a pledge that day that when I'm governor, any institution, and it's not, the Democrats tried to spin that and say, oh, she just, doesn't want to help historically black colleges and universities. That has nothing to do with it. Any institution who tries to silence conservative Christian speech, I will defund. I will make sure they don't get state dollars, because if our voice isn't welcome, then neither is our tax dollar.
I appreciate you taking that stand. Yeah. And our government appoints the people who sits on the boards of these schools. We do have control. We do, and we have to start. I think we, as in so many arenas, feel like we've lost control. I mean, I used to say this when like Target, I'll use Target or Starbucks or Nike. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, they're doing all these things I don't agree with. Stop buying their stuff. The power of your wallet is strong. And I think we've almost lost sight, like, oh, I'm just one person. Well, you're part of a much bigger silent majority. And look what happened. When people started to really wake up and say, hey, if I don't buy that, then that's going to hurt. It's going to hurt them. It's going to change. And you saw that when Robert Kraft is a huge philanthropic donor to so many colleges. When they stopped protecting Jewish students, Robert Kraft became very vocal and said, great, I want all my endowment money back. And wow, did you see those Ivy League schools start getting rid of protesters and making sure Jewish students weren't being harassed. It works. It really works. We just have to stand up and be unapologetic about our beliefs. Absolutely, absolutely. We run a little bit of time, we got some more time, but what's the one thing that you've learned? I'm sure you've learned a lot, but what's one thing you've taken away traveling all the counties of the state that you've learned during this campaign? That everybody wants to be heard. Powerful. And it was interesting because I was on my way to Hampton County, and it was probably October, and a friend called me and they're like, where are you headed? And I'm like, oh, I'm heading to Hampton County. And they're like, why are you going to Hampton County? There's not 25 Republicans in Hampton County. And I said, well, those 25 Republicans deserve for me to show up and ask them for their vote. Just like coming to Autry County where it is all Republican, right? But when I showed up, it was packed. Nobody goes there, so nobody gets involved in what we're thinking. We don't get to tell them and talk to them. And when I talk about creating a blueprint for our state, kind of like you were talking about I-73, right? If you make a blueprint of what we need to have happen in our state, do you know we don't have that? Every county makes a plan, a growth plan. State doesn't have one. How can you ever build anything successful without a blueprint? That's what businesses do.
That's what we do, right?
Yep.
And so that's one of the first things I want to do. I'm going to actually task my lieutenant governor with starting that process. That's one job I want to put in that office, to work with local government, bring everybody to the table. Let's figure out where our fertile farmland is, so that we can do something impactful for our farmers. Let's look at areas that are already under land trust, so we know those areas are out of play. Then let's look at, when we bring local government in, what is it that you want in your backyard?
Yeah.
What are your biggest needs? How do we help you be profitable on your own? And I think that's how you start really coming up. So if somebody wants a data center, data centers are all the rage. People love them or they hate them. What I have said is you have to have local buy-in, right? If you don't want them, people don't want that to be their neighbor in their backyard, then don't have them.
Yeah.
But there are some areas of the state that would welcome it.
Yeah.
So let's figure out as a state, what is a reasonable expectation for what you can handle? And then let's start making parameters. So as we're growing, we're doing it quickly. When businesses are coming to South Carolina, we know exactly where to take them, because we know who wants what around the state. And then we know how to plan for infrastructure. Then we know how to, as the governor, make sure we're playing offense with the Department of Transportation instead of always playing defense.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. The data centers, to your point, we just need to look at it smartly. Because we got to have honest conversations. Lots of people who are against them also need to be fair that we do use the technology and we do need it for security. It's just in the right places. We need to figure the electricity piece of it out, let them produce their own, pay their way. But they can be a good thing in our state when handled correctly, and I appreciate your approach to that.
And that's exactly what I said. You have to have local buy-in, and you have to make sure that a resident never takes a negative hit when it comes to utility bills. Data centers or any industry that comes in has to make sure that they're not negatively impacting the residents of the area they're moving into. And as governor, that's what you do. You protect the people that are there by trying to move the state forward.
Yeah. Judicial reform. Anywhere you go, anybody wants it. It wants it in our state. Tell us your plan to make that happen.
I want to see the governor appoint and the General Assembly confirm, and make sure it's term limited, make sure there's a review process. So if a judge does start to act unfavorably, we have a mechanism to pull them off the bench. That's a lot of power. And my opponent, when we talked about judicial reform last night, he did not want to own up to the fact that when presented with a judge coming to him, James Smith wanted to be a judge. He was a Democrat candidate for governor the first time the governor and I ran. He was endorsed by Planned Parenthood.
Wow.
He said he wanted to be the champion for LGBTQ. Alan Wilson called people in the General Assembly and was politicking for their vote on behalf of him.
Wow.
You can't say you want judicial reform because you want strong judges with conservative values, constitutional values. But, my dad used to have a great saying. He used to say, don't tell me who you are, show me who you are. And that should show the people of South Carolina that given that power, you have no idea who he'd put on the bench.
Yep. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a
Autry,
pleasure.
thank you
so much. Friends, it's your American right to vote. Go out Tuesday and cast your vote. It counts. Join us next time.